And welcome to our weekly edition of our little chat together. This is a live stream. We are very happy that you have joined us. And we are live from our theater here in Hendersonville, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville, where we do the Huckabee Show every weekend, right here on TBN. So if you have been missing that, don't do it ever again. Do not ever miss the show. But we're happy to have you join us. We will take your questions in the course of our live stream today. So you can send them to us by putting your question in. You can also send us a super chat if you're a super person. I guess that's how that works. We have moderators who will be watching the chat. We hope that you will not just be a part of today, but subscribe to the channel. That way we'll let you know when we're going to be doing something like this or when the show comes on. Hit the notification bell. Be sure to leave a comment and also a like, and then share. Be sure to pass this on to friends, relatives, neighbors, enemies, co-workers, whoever that you know who's ever in your directory. That would be great. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. Pam Case, senior senior producer for the show.
I'll be whatever you need me to be.
You know, you've been kind of doing some senior editing lately too, I think.
A little bit of everything. So.
Pam Case with me. She'll be reading off your questions and checking in with all that you are sending in. But I want to get to a couple of big news items of the week. One of them that has just been riveting is the Kyle Rittenhouse trial going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to follow it. If you've been watching cable news, you probably have. Although I don't think it's been given the same level of attention in terms of letting you actually see the trial on CNN and MSNBC. They tell you what they want you to think about it. But I know Fox has been covering it live and just letting you come to your own conclusions. I'm telling you, it was amazing television to watch this because it's a honest to goodness trial. A kid is on trial for his life. And just to remind you, the setting was last summer when all the riots were going on. One of them was in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And there was burning and looting and attacking policemen and police cars and public buildings. This is a kid whose father lived in Kenosha. He actually lived in Illinois. He came in, he said he wanted to be helpful to help protect some of the businesses from being destroyed. He had been trained in some first aids. We had a first aid kit. He also brought in an AR-15 to protect himself. Well, in the course of one of the evenings, things were getting kind of out of hand. One person tried to attack him and hit him in the head with a skateboard. Another lunged at him and tried to take his gun from him. And yet a third pointed a pistol right at his head. He shot all three of them, two of whom died, and the one who survived, he pretty much blew his arm off. So he's on trial for those shootings. The real question is, was that self-defense or was it attempted murder? And in the case of the two, murder. If you watch MSNBC or CNN, you'd get the distinct impression that this kid just went out there and started shooting people. But if you watch the actual trial, forget what Fox News says. I'm talking about just watching the trial and looking at the pictures and the videos that are prevalent there. You'll see that this kid was being chased, he was being attacked, and by any reasonable conclusion, he truly believed his life was in danger. And I would say, good conclusion, kid, because it was in danger. And to his credit, he protected himself. He didn't use excessive force in the sense that he just kept firing that AR-15. They made a big deal of the fact that it held 30 rounds. But what they didn't seem to remind you is that he only shot once. His goal was not to see if he could just obliterate him. His goal was to make sure that he could stop them from killing him. That is the fundamental constitutional right that you have to protect yourself. Now, we can argue all day that 17-year-old kids shouldn't have been carrying around an AR-15 in the middle of a riot. That's for a different discussion. He is not on trial for that. He is on trial for the shooting. And the question is, was the shooting justified based on his ability to defend himself? I want to show some clips. First one, this is Kyle saying that he truly believed he was in imminent danger. Watch.
Did that even factor into your mind at that point? Did you even care whether you were going to kill him or not?
I didn't want to have to kill anybody. I was being attacked. That's why I shot him. But shot at him.
You shot at him with the intent of hitting him and killing him, correct?
I didn't want to kill anybody.
Then why are you shooting at someone with an AR-15 at close range if you don't want to kill him?
Because he's attacking me.
I will tell you that some of the questions the prosecutor asked were some of the dumbest questions I've ever heard asked by anybody, especially a lawyer in a trial. The kid made it very clear, I wasn't trying to kill somebody, I was trying to protect myself. And I was just stunned by the prosecutor. The prosecutor, by the way, got in real trouble with the judge who chewed him out, not in the presence of the jury, he had dismissed the jury, but for trying to really obliterate the constitutional rights of the kid. Here's the prosecutor fumbling around trying to paint a witness in the trial as partisan, and he really comes up short. Watch.
Your videos that you have captured of these incidents that you call riots, they're very slanted against the people who are rioting. You characterize them as Antifa, Black Lives Matter rioters, correct?
Because they are rioting in the footage, yes, absolutely.
The witness, who was a witness for the defense, pretty much obliterates the prosecutor because he says, you're calling these people rioters, Antifa, Black Lives Matter. And he said, so why are you doing that? And the guy just says, because they're rioting. I mean, what an immediately brilliant kind of response to a prosecutor who seemed very ill prepared for this trial.
I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, well, I'll leave it at that.
And he left it at that. There were a number of legal scholars, people like Alan Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley and others, who commented that the judge would have been within his right to have on the very spot issued what's called a directed verdict, which the judge can, in fact, preempt the jury and say this trial is so out of hand, so completely useless and an abuse of the taxpayers' money that he's just going to simply say the trial is over and this young man is acquitted because the prosecutor has utterly violated the constitutional rights of the defendant. Folks, if you get arrested, I hope you haven't been, but I'm sure you've seen enough television and movies to know that the first thing that has to be said to you is you have the right to remain silent. The prosecutor was trying to question and make it as if that when the kid didn't say something after his arrest, that there was something proving his guilt because of it. And the judge came unglued and made it very clear to the prosecutor, you might want to read the Constitution and see what case law has said since the 1960s and the Miranda ruling, which insisted that when you're under arrest, you have to be read your basic rights, the first of which is you have the right to shut up so that you don't incriminate yourself. And that is a basic, fundamental constitutional right. So this has not gone well for the prosecutor. And the only people that seem to see this whole case very differently are the kooks on television, like, as I love Sean Hannity's description, Joyless Reed. Joy Reid on MSNBC. Now, take a look at this. This is her response after Kyle Rittenhouse has been on the stand. He did testify in his own defense, which is, something a lot of defendants won't do because of the potential of getting trapped. He acquitted himself quite well in that. But he broke down at one point when he was asked to describe what he felt when he used the gun and people died from it. And Joy Reid is reacting to his emotional breakdown in this way.
Let me just remind people of the names of the victims. Joseph Rosenbaum, who was 36 years old. Anthony Huber, who was 26. Gage Grosskreutz, who's only 27 years old, was injured. These are the victims. These are the people that people ought to remember are the people who were hurt here, not the person who was crying on the stand today. Paul Butler, thank you very much, my friend. Up next. Ooh, we need critical race theory in this country.
First of all, she said, woo, critical race theory in this country. I guess she's referring to this. every single person involved in this was white. Rittenhouse and the 3 people that were shot. And she kept talking about that they are the victims. First of all, one of them was a convicted child sex abuser, had raped a child. That doesn't mean that he deserves to get shot in the street, but what he also did was using the N-word repeatedly, yelling and screaming, and saying he was going to kill Rittenhouse. So what does Rittenhouse do? Say, let's play checkers first, and we'll see who wins. I mean, the kid feels like his life is threatened because it was. And the person who's threatening him is not a victim. He's a predator. He's an attacker. Same thing with the person who tried to hit him with a skateboard. Same thing with the person who didn't die, but the third one, and she calls him a victim. This victim ran up to Rittenhouse with a gun in his hand and pointed it at Rittenhouse's head. Doesn't make him a victim. It's truly insane. I'm sure we're getting some questions. We'll take them now.
We are. I have to mention, one of our viewers today said that prosecutor has the IQ of a sandwich.
I've had some sandwiches that I think were smarter, to be honest.
Tasted a lot better. A couple of super chats came in right when we started. T. Hansen, thank you, says God bless you.
Thank you.
Governor. David White, also a super chat today. Talk about trials. What about all the evidence on the Russian collusion hoax? Someone should be forced to pay back the dollars, and Trump should get 4 more years.
Well, he can only get those 4 years if he's elected. He can only get those if he runs, but he should have had these 4 years. But the press relentlessly attacked him. The Congress impeached him twice. It was utterly absurd and ridiculous. What we now know from the Durham investigation and the indictments, not just an investigation, but these indictments really do show that all roads lead back to Hillary. And it was a concerted effort to deceive the FBI. The FBI either is an incompetent agency that couldn't do their own investigation work to find out that all this material that they had been handed that came from people like Igor Danchenko and Christopher Steele and Mark Elias, all of them connected to the Hillary campaign, hated Trump, loved Hillary, and they were feeding this stuff to the FBI, who then used it to get a FISA warrant to go to a judge and say, hey, we have real evidence that Donald Trump is colluding with the Russians. Every bit of it was completely fabricated and made up by these operatives from the Hillary Clinton campaign. So I want to just say to David, I agree with you. Somebody ought to pay. Maybe it's the DNC, maybe it's Bill and Hillary. I don't know. But it shouldn't be the taxpayers that have to pay for this farce. The sad thing is, all this time, you got people like Adam Schiff. Remember when he held up that manila envelope and waved it and said, I've got evidence right here of Donald Trump colluding with the Russians. Never opened that envelope, never showed us what it was. It was empty. There wasn't any. But it resulted in the impeachment of a president, a $37 million Mueller investigation, which was, again, a joke and a witch hunt. That's an exact way to put it. And the criminal justice system in this country, pretty well shredded. But the credibility of the FBI has been destroyed because they were either incompetent to not be able to sniff this out and know that it was complete nonsense, or they were complicit in it, which makes it even worse because that means they participated in the criminal activity of getting a judge to open up an investigation and to tap the phones of a presidential candidate and later a sitting U.S. president. This is incredibly serious stuff. I hope people don't forget it anytime soon.
Yeah, we've really stirred it up this afternoon. A happy hoarder says, how do people like Joyless live with themselves?
People like Joyless live with themselves because they just believe they're better than us. I mean, that's what I found about people on the far left. This is not an issue of, okay, here are facts. You want to dispute the facts with a different point of view. My experience is I can tweet something out and make a statement based on fact. As the old saying goes, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Liberals are entitled to their own facts. And here's the way they'll say it. Well, let me just speak my truth. Can I just tell you that real truth is not subjective. It's not yours or mine. Real truth is truth. It's objectively true. And it's not my truth that makes it more than your truth, because that's nonsense. That's silly talk on the part of leftists. So Joy Reid, when she says stuff like that, she's saying it because she truly believes that she's just better than us. And if she can attack us, then we're supposed to surrender and be sorry for what we said. Let me be real clear. I am not. If I say something that I believe is wrong, I'll admit it. But just because some lunatic on the left yells and screams and wants me to feel guilty, doesn't work like that. Not for me. God will make me feel guilty. I don't need Joy Reid to do it.
Well, so many folks are watching today. Got to thank those that are there. And plus, you can certainly share what you're seeing here today. Still time to get questions in. We're talking live with Governor Mike Huckabee. We have folks from New Jersey, Governor, Pittsburgh, Oregon today as well. And I want to dig in a little bit more with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Janie Cavender is writing, Kyle Rittenhouse needs to sue mainstream media for the slander.
I think he not only does, I hope he will. And by the way, one of the persons on that list to sue would be President Biden, who before the trial, before a verdict was handed out, called this kid a white supremacist. Now, how does he know what this kid's views about race are? There's no indication, and nothing whatsoever has surfaced in the trial that race had a thing to do with the motive of Kyle Rittenhouse. Nothing. So for the president of the United States to inject himself into a criminal process and issue his own verdict from the White House, that's really stupid stuff. And we're all entitled to due process. I don't care who you are. And his was interrupted by a bunch of politicians. There were a number of other political people who made similar statements and truly disparaged this young man before he ever got in front of a jury with the evidence. I want to play, we're talking about Biden here. Let's segue to this. Joe Biden talks about jobs and what's going on in the economy. You'd think that he's absolutely stunned that everything is falling apart. Those of us who know basic economy 101, we're not. But here's what Joe says about how the trickle-down economy doesn't work, and I'll respond to it in just a sec.
No, I'm tired of this trickle-down economy stuff. I come from Delaware, just across the line up here, and we have more corporations in Delaware than every other nation in the state combined. And so I understand big business. The fact of the matter is, it's time they start paying their fair share.
Time is for Joe to understand that when he talks about trickle-down economy, that's a term that has been disparaged, but what it means is that if there is a job to be created, it must be created by somebody who has enough capital to pay the wages of the person who gets hired. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a trickle-up economy? A trickle-up would mean that the homeless people are the ones who are providing jobs. People who don't have jobs and who can't even pay their rent would be paying for a company to be started. Have you ever heard of anything like that happens? No. So people with capital are access to it through loans. They create a business. If it's a service business, they offer services. If it's a goods business, they stock goods on the shelf and they promise to sell them. And then people with money enough to pay for the good or service purchases it. In order to make all that work, the business will hire people. And that's how the economy works. It's not that complicated, Joe. But I realize you've only been in government. You've never signed the front of a paycheck in a business before. And as a result of that, you may not understand how it works because you've always gotten your checks without any interruption because people like the rest of us paid for it through our taxes. Joe then goes on to talk about providing union jobs up to $45 an hour. And I want you to hear who he thinks those jobs come from.
Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create good paying union jobs, not good job, not $12 an hour, not $15 an hour, $45 an hour and up with good benefits. So you can raise a family on and build the middle class out. And jobs that cannot be outsourced. You can't outsource these jobs.
Now, I want you to catch what he said. I'm going to create union jobs. How are you going to do that, Joe? Just out of the thin air? You're just going to create some union jobs and pay people $45 an hour? And let me ask you something, Joe. If you can pay them $45, why not pay them $100 an hour? Why not $150 an hour? Why do you stop at 45? Who gives you the right to decide what the wage ought to be per hour? You see, Joe never brings this up. But most of us who have ever worked in the private sector, who have had to hire people, and quite frankly, who've had to fire people, understand that what governs how much you pay somebody is what is the prevailing rate of pay for that particular job. Sometimes you got to pay people $100 an hour. If you've got a surgeon who's going to open you up and take your heart out and rearrange it and fix it and put it back in, I'll bet you pay him several $1,000s an hour, right? But you say, well, you know, that's a pretty special skill. It's worth more than the person who is handing me French fries in a paper sack through my car window. Because a lot of people, and I'm not disparaging the person who's handing out the French fries. I'm just saying that it is not as skilled a labor as is the heart surgery. So why do people sometimes make more than others? Because if you have a certain number of jobs that are needed to be done, you pay what it takes to get those jobs done. You don't pay necessarily more, but you can't pay less or nobody will do that work. That's the basic economy. Joe has no clue as to how that works. And I'll tell you this, he won't create a single job. None. Businesses create jobs. Finally, I want to bring this up. He talks about the fair share. I hate that term because it always indicates that, he's paying his fair share, even though we found out that he owed about $500,000 in taxes. But he always has this thing that if a person has affluence or wealth, they must have obtained it illegally or unlawfully or unethically, and he wants to come after them. Watch.
And guess what? That's in the Recovery Act. That's in the Build Back Better bill, which is not going to raise taxes one single cent. It's totally paid for by making taxes work for people who make over 400 grand and just do their fair share. I'm a capitalist, man. You should be able to be a millionaire or billionaire if you can, but pay your fair share. Pay something along the line.
Joe, I'll assure you that most people who are millionaires and billionaires, they do pay taxes, a lot of taxes. And they pay it in capital gains. They pay it in interest on savings. They pay it in income. There are certain ways to shelter the taxes and not pay more than they have to. But Joe, let me do a little routine on you like you do sometimes. Remember when you whisper into the microphone like you have something profound? Let me say something profound and I'll whisper it into the microphone. Joe, you were in the Senate for 45 years. You wrote the tax laws. You're the one who helped write the laws that the rich people use so they don't have to pay so much tax. It's on you, Joe. You wrote the law. How about that?
How about that?
What do we got?
Navy vet for the broken is a super chatter. Thank you for that very much. He's asking Governor, how many young men and women who've graduated high school and enlisted at 17 and 18 before going to war, now they're considered criminals?
Well, that's a good point. And also, by the way, less than 1% of Americans now have military service. So one of the, I think, unfortunate things is that military service has become the domain of the very, very super minority of Americans, not something that touches across all families. And it would be better if it did.
Louis asking too, how can Biden understand something that he's never worked for, he's never worked under, and never owned himself?
Well, that's a good point. He can understand it, and he doesn't understand it. And those clips we just played pretty clearly indicates that. By the way, a reminder, be sure and hit the subscribe button so you'll know when we're going to be doing a live chat or when we have other videos, which we have all the time. Hit the notification bell, leave a comment for us, and be sure to like the video and share it with your friends and neighbors. That would be great.
Respond to this one. Swadlow says, you're a communist.
I'm a communist?
That's what it says.
Wow. How does he arrive at that?
I don't know. A little justification, SWAD, please.
Yeah, I might
in
want
the
to send
chat.
it
You might
back
wanna
and tell us how I'm a
justify.
communist. I'm
Yes,
a lot of
please.
things. I've been accused of a lot of things. I think that's the first time I've ever been accused of being a communist.
Well, I've got it right here in front
Well,
of us.
just so he apparently flunked civics, because a communist is somebody who believes that when we work, we don't get to keep what we earned. We give it to the government, and the government redistributes it. It's a communal form of economy. And everything that one has, he or she gives it to the government, who then decides how much each of us get back. By the way, I hate that system. I think it's horrible. Destroys the human spirit. It's never worked in the history of mankind. Might want to do a little reading on your.
Well, we heard back from SWAD, so our apologies.
Okay.
He says that was for Biden.
Oh, for Biden.
So there.
So
you go.
sorry.
Sorry
I'm
about
chewing
that.
you out, Swad. And it wasn't me you were talking about. Got it.
We love you. Mean it.
We're friends again, okay? Thank you. And God bless. I'm so glad you clarified. 'Cause
Thank
I was
you
thinking,
for clarifying.
whoa.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Niels Carlson writes, Joe Biden has never been a capitalist. He has always been a parasite on the taxpayers.
That's a good word, parasite, because it's someone who attaches itself to something healthy and lives off of it. And he's attached himself to the taxpayers, and he's lived very healthily off the taxpayers. But I mean, if you look at his long career in government, can you really say, here's what Joe Biden produced? Here's what he accomplished and produced. Can't think of it.
Rick Hicks has written, and I think you've spoken to this before, but a great question. Do you support the Convention of States?
Yes. Rick, I do, because it's the only way we're going to get some reforms like the balanced budget amendment, which I strongly believe is more necessary now than ever. When I see how much the proposals are that the Democrats want to spend on so-called human infrastructure, which is free college, free daycare, free babysitting, free everything. And it's going to bankrupt the country. Some like $6 trillion is the actual cost. And no, Joe, it isn't paid for. It just isn't. That's not true. So, I hope that maybe shed some light on it. We got another?
Yes, right here. David White, we've got another super chat from him. He says that the cost of everything starts with the cost of fuel.
That's a good point, David. And a friend of mine in California, he lives in LA. He sent me a photo of the gas station in his neighborhood, $6.10 a gallon for regular gasoline in California right now, $6.10. Folks, I don't have to tell you, there's two things I think they're going to take the Democrats out next year and in 2024. Simple things, two things, groceries and gas, because everybody has to have groceries, everybody has to have gas, and the cost is just exponentially going up because of the mismanagement that the Biden team has done on the economy. It's stunning, and I'm hoping that people will recognize that. Okay.
Yeah, we had a question earlier that we didn't get in about the infrastructure bill from David White, that saying that it's just going to rebuild the Democrat cities.
Yeah, I mean, there's really arbitrary ways. And how many of you remember the $800 billion shovel-ready job project that Barack Obama put out in 2009? Turned out that what they were shoveling is something I can't actually mention on this communication with you, but needless to say, there was a lot of shoveling going on, but it wasn't jobs. It was nonsense. I can't really point to much that happened. It's a scam. Hey, let me tell you what isn't a scam. Us having this chat, and I'm so glad that you have connected with us today. We've got a fantastic show coming up this weekend on the Huckabee Show, right here from this theater on TBN. I hope you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to hit the notification bell. Share with others what you're watching. We just want to thank you for joining us. And when we tell you to watch the show, I don't want to just encourage you. I want to give you a really good reason to do it right now.
This week on Huckabee, how wokeness infected the military. News with a twist on In Case You Missed It.
Well, he should come to work for the Biden White House because they desperately need a wizard.
Illusionist Danny Ray. Ruth Graham on transforming loneliness. And bluegrass band The Cleverleys perform. Watch Huckabee on Saturday at 8/7 Central and again on Sunday at 9/8 Central right here on TBN.